Yes, I'm wearing a white shirt. It's laundry day. Long story short, it was an owl. It's never aliens. Might be Australians, but I'd have to be upside down. Braxton County, West Virginia, 1952, September 12th. At first, it was thought to be a plane crash in every state that it showed up at, until the Akron Astronomy Club and countless mentions of meteorites were found in Maryland, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia newspapers. It was a meteorite. This is something that's actually agreed upon by most, if not all, people. Yes, I'm referring to something that actually didn't happen today or a couple of days ago that was attributed to being an asteroid or spaceship. But anyway, Tommy, Ed, and Fred, 10 to 13-year-old kids, told a grown-up named Kathleen May they saw a meteor, or a UFO, hit G. Bailey Fisher's farm at about 7:15 p.m. in a September night, or evening. They then were joined by Neil, Ronnie, and Eugene, all ages 10 to 17, and a dog. So basically at this point we have two grown-ups who decided the 5 kids and a dog should go with them to a farm to look for a meteor or UFO at around sundown. Or maybe a little, maybe a little before sundown. After exerting themselves getting there, they were standing on top of a hill. They noted a pungent mist that made their eyes and noses burn, and about 50 feet to their right, they saw a large pulsating ball of fire, and to the left of that, one of them say they saw 2 small lights under a nearby oak tree, and thought that's an animal's eyes underneath there. So that person pointed a flashlight at it and saw a creature. But suddenly it wasn't underneath the tree, it was 10 feet tall. But anyway, small claw-like hands which extended in front of it, a reddened face shaped like an ace of spades. They didn't specify at the time whether it was right side up or upside down. Later on it had to be right side up according to drawings. A green pleated skirt or body, and then it gave a shrill hiss and glided towards them. 10 feet tall. Glided towards them. Then it went towards a red light. This is a direct quote that keeps showing up, but it's not really explained at all. And they dropped the flashlight. The entire group fled in sheer panic, one of them falling backwards at first. Witnesses differed on details like the color scheme, its texture, how it moved, and whether it had arms. But it definitely flew, apparently, and scared them. A foggy night with an odor that has been later on to be attributed to a type of grass in the area that was growing and doing something at the time, making a pungent smell, or maybe causing eye burns and hay fever. Red flashing and non-flashing aircraft beacons and lights visible from the area of the sighting that could light up something blank white looking in the face to make it look red. A body made from shadows of a nearby foliage looking like, cloth. Its body acting as the silhouette, its body silhouette acting as a head, and hissing all match the call of a barn owl, and the talons gripping a branch on a tree limb in front of it in a threat posture. And they don't hoot, they go T-shirt comes in handy being matte white, or actually grayish white. Just before being startled and doing its typical flight maneuver of going at a target that's attacking it and flying suddenly away, causing it to appear much larger than it is and scaring the living shit out of you. They're very common and they occur in many, many places. They'll also dead-ass run into your face if you're stupid enough to run into one in the middle of the forest at night. They tend to perch at night and sleep. Yes, I've been hit in the face by one. But anyway, let's go on with this. They're called barn owls, but they're just called the common owl in most places. One adult witness originally said this: I don't know what they saw, but they sure saw something on that hill. Of course, at twilight, you can see lots of things. They could have been seeing an owl sitting up there in a tree and put a body under it, presumably with their imaginations. Now, everybody's story changed and differed. Obviously, witness testimony isn't really reliable under any conditions, but under conditions when you've had the shit scared out of you, time stretches when you're dropping your flashlight. They all saw this for a split second, maybe 1 or 2 seconds, before they figure out what the hell they were looking at. Not everybody was looking at the same thing, by the way. Most of them were looking at the red light, which may or may not have been an actual meteor. No one recovered it later, which is pretty common if it was a meteor. Another adult witness, however, originally said that it was worse than Frankenstein's monster. Later on, when there was a live We the People TV show interview in New York available, then said, I have no idea what the monster was. Then later on said, I talked to scientists. They convinced me it wasn't a monster, it was a rocket ship. Later, the person then responded to explain this. I received a letter from Washington, D.C., the Pentagon. They sent me a small picture of it. It looked like what I saw that night, telling me it was a secret plane the government was working on. So there's no question in my mind it was some kind of airplane or rocket ship. But they said plane. Wait a minute. Where is this coming from? That actually has a story separately. What is this document? Well, I'm going to do that as well here, but the Air Force made a conclusion that it was an owl perched on a limb, with the underbrush giving it the impression of a much bigger figure, so it's not anything at all. Now, that's the government's official opinion immediately. No, it was many years later. But this person claimed they got a document from the government, and then someone's claiming a cover-up. And also it should be mentioned that there was long skid marks found the next morning in the mud and traces of thick black liquid from Max Lockhart's 1942 Chevy pickup truck with an oil leak, but it was reported as a sign of a possible saucer landing. You see, there's not just benign explanation, but witnesses saying, I was there, I was driving around, I thought I might have seen something, because they saw the same light and went out there, or whatever. But no, oily, strangely motor oil-like greasy substance, and tracks look like a skid mark from a spacecraft landing, because spacecraft, it's a Chevy spacecraft. Chevy Nova. Anyway, here we go. What was in the document? It was a publicity release from Collier's magazine for an issue for the October 18th, 1952 second installment of a series called Man Will Conquer Space Soon. It had an attached 8x10 photo of artwork by Chelsea Bonestell, which was to appear on the cover depicting the moon lander of the future, that they then featured October 11th, 1952, on page 32 in that issue. There's a link below to it. It was a preview. And this was all discussing Warner Brun Brown's plan of how a moon rocket would be constructed and propelled by an ammonia-like hydrazine and nitric acid propulsion system. Which, if you want to be really fair about it, a test rocket going off somewhere in West Virginia, going way off course, and the tank going down and breaking there, okay. Because a lot of these, if you're not aware of it, hydrazine tanks do not operate in a burning way the same way you would think of in our atmosphere. So, a hootless 1.5 foot tall barn owl that hunts small pest animals, which they locate on the ground by sound, is being blamed for this. Here's some background on how people respond to him in general. Again, getting hit in the face, like with a mallet. It doesn't weigh shit, but oh my God. It's like, it comes at you and then it darts to the left or the right. I zigged when I should have zagged. I don't know. I don't remember much except feeling like an idiot. In rural populations, salt of the earth. If you've watched Blazing Saddles, you know what I just omitted. They get to be called demon, death, ghost, or like corpse owls, seen as evil omens, or diseased animals to be killed, or killed because they're instruments of witchcraft, because that's so fucking enlightened. Even though they get rid of all the mice and rats in your area because you morons. Anyway, so that might give you an idea of the reactions they induce. Again, their behavior, if they're startled, if they can figure out what's coming at them, is to go at something to scare it away and then get enough height to fly away, because they're vulnerable when they're on the ground perched or when they're hunting on the ground. They also have a threat posture. If anybody's curious, one of my little bits in high school was I'd pull my shirt over my head, put my arms underneath the shirt, put my fingers up like claws on the nearest desk or chair back, and screech at people. Because if that shocks you, you haven't been watching my channel. This thing's... By the way, in case you're curious, the reason I did that, I got hit in the face by one of these things. They scare the crap out of everybody. That's why they're demon beasts. No, it's just a big dumb bird that's not very accurate about hitting large objects. It hunts little things. It doesn't know how to deal with big things. It'd probably run into a moose and get stuck on its horns, or just sit there perched on it looking like an idiot. Birds are not... Well, anyway. It's under 1.5 feet tall, okay? But if it's sitting on something big, you could interpret it differently. The monster legend is celebrated every year as Flatwood Days, 3-day-long weekend festival of live music, food, and craft vendors in the town of Flatwoods for the tourists. And I used to give tours of Eastern Oregon for people to find boogeyman or the desert version of Sasquatch. Got a pretty nickel out of that. The Flatwoods Phantom Monster of Brenton County, West Virginia. 1952, September 12th. So, if anybody's curious about it, the things that are asserted, it was a meteorite strike, may have been in that area, but then there's no report of actually finding the physical object, the bolide, and it's been too long ago for anybody to do anything with it. Number one. Number two, there's a financial interest in the area to keep the story going. Next, a couple of people who were in the newspaper kept spinning the story. Next, at least one witness just flat out said, yeah, it could be an owl. Because they knew it was an owl. Because if you live in an area around the thing, you figure it out after you get hit in the face a couple of times. Next, that's not the only time I ever got hit by one, or at least had to deal with one. They just don't... They're literally a living jump scare, okay? Just... After a while, I can like, okay, it's the damn owl again. I had a talent for that shit. Owl. So, yeah, anyway, they got to be on TV being witnesses about it. The kids grew up being heroes or whatever. One person even claimed to have just faked the whole story or convinced the others to do it or led them by the nose. Next, the actual issues of the stuff and the descriptions given to, the Collier's magazine, the artwork, their other artwork, the artwork of blah, blah, blah is available from that person at one point, part of her portfolio, and there was other stuff like it. People who did futuristic designs and such would have artists do them up. So it's not hard to see that. Anyway, you can look at the image itself and see, that shape looks interesting. But it wasn't some CIA involvement or anything like that. Somebody just showed them that from the Collier's thing. The claim is that now we have to make it into the most complicated conspiracy possible. The U.S. government convinced Collier's and Von Braun here to create a fake story to fool them all. You know what the government would have done? They would have just gone out there and, when no one's looking, with an aircraft, just dropped a hunk of equipment there that looked approximately like what they described and say, there it is. Yeah, it's one of our rockets. It was a test piece of equipment. We don't know where it went. It didn't parachute correctly. I mean, you could just do that. That's the story they're telling. You could just confirm it. That's how you do a cover-up. But they didn't do that. They actually said, no, it's probably a damn barn owl. And no, there isn't any proof that they have any kind of note from the government. It only matches up exactly with a story that was in a commonly available newspaper thingy or magazine. Good day, good luck, goodbye with that.